healing capacity within without having to rely on big pharma, because big pharma is just coming along with people who are remembering their trauma and doping them up with their pharmaceuticals to keep them from remembering who they are and why they're here. They're keeping us away from our strength of the human spirit and infinite power of love very deliberately with the pharmaceuticals. Big pharma is, follow the money. They're right at the top of this puppet master manipulation of all of us. And we don't need their drugs. We don't need their dumbing down. We need to, realize our own strength, and we have to have a clear mind in order to be able to do that. So, if any drug is needed, if anything is needed, then the causation hasn't been addressed. And when survivors start to heal, they have adrenal systems that are completely out of whack from the tortures that they went through. And those adrenal systems take a gentle nurturing back into health, and safety, again, is key. So we don't need antidepressants. We don't need anti-anxiety. We don't need anything to manipulate that other than to remember who we are and why we're here.
Right. Exactly. And of all of that, I mean, we speak, I often speak to Jerry Marzinski, who's, I don't know if you've heard any of his stuff, but he's understood that schizophrenia is not hallucinations. It's really entities, and that start from exactly the type of trauma that we've been speaking about earlier on, right? And it's kind of like the last outpost for narcissism, but it's entities that have literally taken over the body, and big pharma literally uses that, their stuff to suppress that. And it's incredible when we see how this whole mafia, this medical mafia, amongst all the other mafias operating, actually how destructive they are. That's for sure.
Yeah, and even the term entities gives the power outside self to something etherical, when in fact it's the way our brain is misfiring from the abuse. It's the way the neuron pathways were shut down and compartmentalized. So all that can be healed, but the schizophrenia is horrifically misdiagnosed, along with the targeted individual voice to skull programming is very often misdiagnosed. Yes, there's the technologies. Yes, there's legitimate psychiatric issues, but usually it is a matter of semantics, because like when I started my healing process, I heard the voices of my abusers in my head telling me what to do. If I had just announced that to a misinformed psychiatrist or psychologist, they would have said I was schizophrenic. They would have said I was bipolar. If I had gone online and looked it up like people do today to wonder what in the world is that going on in my head, then they say, oh, it's voice to skull. I see. That's what it is. So, there's suggestibility is so high that they're ready to gravitate to whatever they're told is the issue. When in fact, if they pick up that pen and paper and start writing it out, they're going to open the neuron pathways in their brain and get to the truth and the reality of what has happened.
I so look forward to having future conversations with you about that, because I'm so with you on that. It's exactly, the trauma has absolutely created that. And it's not even, they talk about they've stolen your soul or whatever it might be, or fragmented. They can't actually do that in reality, but they can make you believe that they've done that. And the problem is, when you believe that they've done that, that's when they are open to manipulating you to the nth degree. And that's why when you realize they can actually never take from you which never was theirs to begin with.
Right.
Right? So all you have to do is just know that that thought in itself is what reclaims your energy or reclaims your power. It's that thought or that understanding is what switches that light on again. Yeah? What's your take on that?
Absolutely. Truth makes us free, and that's the reality of how we're made. We've been blessed with a resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. We have a capacity for healing, and anybody who tells us otherwise, anything outside ourselves that suggests otherwise, as leading, and very often has been, like the multi-generational aspect, has been conditioned and indoctrinated in their education to perpetuate the repression of our amazing capacities. So there's so many aspects of society that need to heal and start facing truth and expand their thinking beyond what they think they know, because there's a lot more to learn.
So much more. So much more. I mean, just so much more. I think we have, and as you were saying earlier on, these are such amazing times to be alive. For us to be witnessing this awakening and being part of it is such a privilege, when actually so many people are unfortunately still asleep, but the awakening in the last 5 years, I mean, you've been doing this for 35 years, Cathy.
Yeah.
How was it in the beginning for you? Who was the first person you tried to tell or told? And that'd be interesting. How were you received? How was your testimony initially received when you first started talking about this?
Well, I had healed from within myself and already knew my own truth. I had written out my memory, which we'll get into in our next conversation. But the fact that I had healed made it where I couldn't be triggered. And I also didn't need validation outside myself as to what my truth is and was. So there's still a lot of healing process going on. But my daughter's situation was extreme. She had been thrust into the corrupted Child Protective Services, and that's just another way of trafficking children here. And it was absolutely horrific. So I was trying to raise awareness for her and her need, and telling them they had no right to take custody of her. It was a medical kidnapping. They had no right to that. And I began speaking out and explaining what was really going on. So it was love for Kelly that compelled me to start speaking out so early. And when people didn't want to believe what I was saying, I was touched that people were so innocent that they couldn't wrap their brain around the reality. And I realized that people were ignorant. I realized they had been deliberately left in the dark. I realized that, I was coming out of a hell screaming that, and a hell nobody knew existed, because society had suppressed the information for so long. So it gave me a deep understanding into the magnitude of social engineering and the goodness, the innate goodness of people. If I had needed them to validate it, I guess I would have been mad, but I didn't. I needed them to hear what I was saying, because truth is seeds planted. It never goes away. Truth is its own energy force. It's an absolute. So I knew that eventually they would see what was happening and be able to join me in helping my daughter. And that's exactly what happened.
And here you are 35 years later. How is your daughter? I mean, how is she now after? Is she good?
Well, she had that double whammy, the compound felony of MK Ultra mind control. And then when Mark lifted her and I out of the swamp, she had time to be safe. She had time to know that safety existed. She had time to critically analyze. She was able to learn from Mark in that short year before she was taken into custody to re-traumatize her further. So then she was thrust into that. And so that's like a major compound felony that she experienced, to be safe and then not, and be taken away from those who loved her. It was really harsh. But as she clearly states, that 1 year, that little bit of time she had when she learned to think, gave her the capacity to think through her circumstances, so that when she was told her past wasn't real, she just retorted, "Your beliefs don't change reality." When she was being indoctrinated in the school system, she said programmed information is not applicable knowledge. And so she was always a constant source of strength, just from having had that, and the realization that I was fighting with everything I had for her. And she told me, she said, how many other mothers would take on a whole government for their children? She never felt abandoned at all. She only felt love. So through it all, that made the big difference to where she is today. She is the most amazing resiliency, the most profound example of the resiliency, the strength of the human spirit, and the infinite power of love that I have ever seen. She's extremely intelligent, very brilliant, and uses the reality of her past as a filter to understand what's happening today. The conversations that she and I have are so profound. They're so divine. Uh, they're so five-dimensional. I mean, they're so amazing because of what we know and what we're seeing as we watch people wake up to embrace that same truth. So yeah, she's just my closest friend, and an amazing example of there's no excuse not to heal, people. It's within us all. If she can do it, we all can do it.
I mean, really, I take my hat off to you survivors and thrivers. Really, I do. Because, and I say that to a lot of the other people I work with as well who are survivors. I mean, to come through what you people have come through, and even be sane, let alone loving and radiant after that. I mean, that to me, and I think that for humanity is a miracle of love. You guys are walking, talking examples of miracles of love. It's the first time I've actually put it in those words. It's just dawned on me now. So it's a miracle of love to see how you survivors and thrivers have overcome and transcended what you have. It is a miracle. And I feel so blessed to be talking to people like you, Cathy. And I am so looking forward to tomorrow, where we're going to have our follow-up show on SOULutions with Shanti, guys, not on Aquarius Rising, SOULutions. And we will be having Cathy again. We're going to be talking more about SOULutions, healing, harmony, all sorts of cool things. But I don't know, is there anything else you still have? I know we've got your website up. Anything coming up for you? Any promotions you want to do? Or just something lovely you want to say to our viewers, as you always do?
Oh, I encourage everyone to look into the truth. They can find my books on my website at trance-formation.com. They can find them on Audible. The information's out there, and it's secured by me. I read the Audible myself so people would know they were getting integrity of information. There's so much truth that's being censored. There's so much truth that's being diluted and diverted and renamed and everything else, but we can always get to the very base core of it, because when we reclaim our free thought, free will, we have discernment of truth. We recognize it. We realize we have all the power.
Exactly.
We have the victory, and it's time to claim it. We all need to remember who we are and why we're here, and claim that victory. start living the love we are.
It's so true. And you know, you use the word discernment, a word I often use as well. And I think spiritually, and I say this a lot, your spiritually, discernment is probably the most important spiritual tool at this time. And you can't have good discernment unless you've sorted out the stuff that's blocking that discernment to begin with. In other words, the dramas, the pains, the sufferings, the needless weights we carry. We've got to transform those. We've got to let that go and move into lightness and love. And then discernment is the order of the day. Yeah.
Perfect. That's why I love talking with you so much. Your wisdom is just, it's so beautiful. It's so empowering. And I'm looking forward to more with you as always. You're amazing, Chantelle.
Cathy, so are you. What could I say? I feel blessed. I really feel blessed. You know, I sit here and I listen to you and I think about myself as a little girl, you know, on the farm in South Africa. And over the mountain, I was convinced America was there because I was in love with Jimmy Osmond, you know, the singer Jimmy Osmond. I was convinced I'm going to America one day and I'm marrying Jimmy Osmond. So America for me, because Jimmy Osmond was there, was like, absolutely, I'm going there. But, you know, I joke about that, but it's incredible for me to sit here now and imagine then and the dreams and aspirations I had as a little child of teaching people how to talk to animals, and that's one of the things I love to do. I teach animal communication. It is just one of the most rewarding things that we do. And just to be kind to one another, you know, that sort of stuff. I can't even put it in words. But to be able to sit here and speak to someone like yourself after all these years, after the traumas you've been through, and this is who you've become, it's such a privilege. And it's a little girl in me that is the woman now that rejoices for people like you. So thank you. Really, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You are the change for the world. That's for sure. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I want to just say thank you to everybody for watching. I really appreciate you guys. I love hanging out with you on weekends. Date nights on weekends. And I so look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central African time. It is now 6:20, so an hour before, the same time as what we started today. Cathy, as always, what a beautiful pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow again for double dose. Wow, what a beautiful double dose. Double helping, double serving.
Thank you.
Bye, beautiful Cathy.
Love you.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.